Hello and welcome, fans of two-wheeled fun. Today we're going to be dissecting a pretty sweet bike, the GasGas ECC6 160 170mm 29-inch wheeled Enduro machine with a SRAM Eagle powertrain. Let's dive in and learn about the ECC. Covering vast landscapes like this isn't all that new for GasGas. The brand has a rich history in motorcycle racing, and now they've got a pretty rich history in their short time with the GasGas Enduro race team. And while GasGas might not be on your radar if you're not a dirt bike enthusiast, it certainly is a brand that has a rich heritage and history, and we're excited to dive into this bike. This here is where the bike really shines. High speed, wide open chunder. Long wheelbase makes it a little tough. Phew. So first up, we've got a fairly traditional horse link style mountain bike. It's got 160 millimeters of travel out back with a 170 up front. There are 3 models available, the ECC4, 5, and 6. Now, all of the bikes share the same carbon fiber frame, the same geometry, size-specific rear triangles. However, just like all the other bikes in the world, the spec and features or components on those bikes will change as you move through the product line. We have the top spec ECC6 here. They have the SRAM Broza Eagle powertrain drive unit, which features the auto shift, which you can run or not run, as well as the coast shift technology and the 12-speed T-type drivetrain. Some other notable technology and features on the bike is the WP/DVO suspension. DVO is obviously a brand mountain bikers are familiar with, and WP is a motocross suspension brand that has won awards and championships for decades, and they actually collaborated to create the first, I guess, which is cone valve technology inside mountain bike specific suspension. So both the rear shock and this fork have DVO and WP's partnered or collaborative cone valve technology. So this slightly modified suspension is working off of existing DVO architecture. You've got the Jade X coil rear shock, as well as the Onyx D1 fork, sort of being the working chassis, so to speak. The internals are where some of the differences in magic happens. Now, the cone valve essentially works like a blow-off valve. You still have high speed, low speed, compression adjustability, as well as rebound. On this fork here, on the 6 model, you have the OTT adjustability, which is off the top sensitivity that you can tune in. And from there, the cone valve essentially, it gives the fork a firmer and stiffer riding feel off the top, and then when the transfer in energy is high enough, that blow off essentially happens and lets the suspension move a bit more freely. It's definitely different, and it's a noticeable difference on the trail, and something that I think some riders will grow to like or may not be. Briefly, let's touch on the 3 sizes available. We've got a small medium, medium large, and a large extra large. And again, with those sizes, there are size-specific rear triangles, but we've opted for the medium large, so the middle size bike. It has a 475 reach, 64-degree head tube angle. On our size medium, the chainstays are fairly long at 465 millimeters, which gives the overall wheelbase of the bike a 1,289 millimeter wheelbase. Another notable number is the 663 millimeter stack height. As you can see, we've got a fair bit of spacers there. I probably will even take out this larger 10 mil and make it a 5 mil so I can get another 5 mil drops down. Aside from that, a standout call that we are very happy with is the 160 millimeter cranks across the board. So nice job, GasGas, spec'ing a 160 crank, and thank you very much. Something that I think GasGas has done well in the design and feature of this bike, especially with this shock tune, is I find myself running the rebound a little bit faster. I typically like a quick rebound, but I would say this is even like 1 or 2 clicks faster. And I think with maybe the long rear end, you can do that because it's not going to be quite so bucky. off of jumps or awkward features, but the liveliness and the hyperactivity of that rear end kind of help combat the long rear end and the overall length of the wheelbase and make it a fairly fun bike to just kind of be popping and moving around. So yeah, I think overall I'm pretty stoked on how this rear end is feeling with minimal setup or tinkering. These plastic, we'll call them shrouds, because that's what I think we call them on the dirt bikes, right? Is something that GasGas has brought over, we'd say is a bit of a nod to their motorcycle history. They claim that it is more of an effort to protect the frame. Generally, those aren't areas that we damage quite so much as back here, but nevertheless, it is nice to have some added protection, and whether you like it or you don't, you can't really deny it adds a little bit of style to the bike. And keeping in tune with the hard enduro mentality, I am a big fan of this skid plate down here. Again, we spend a lot of time bashing through rocks. The separation between frame, drive unit, and the skid plate is good. It is very durable. Big props to GasGas for thinking that thing out, and I guess with all that expertise in motorcycle design, it's you would hope that they would have a good bash plate figured out, and they definitely do. For me, I think the bike, again, excels in the high speed stuff. The long wheelbase and the long rear end have some pros, especially when it comes to really steep climbing. The front end, despite the very high stack, is long, so it keeps the front end down on really steep and technical climbs. It allows you to just keep grinding and putting the power down. Speaking of power, I personally feel like the SRAM drive unit, although it delivers 90 Newton meters of torque and 680 watts of peak power, it feels like you're working a little bit harder to achieve maximum driver power. I do like some things about it. I like the lower cadences and where it will still feel like it's giving power. Take that for what it's worth. Some people like a more natural feel, and this bike, I would say, gives that. Moving into some of the suspension performance, initially the WP DVO fork was leaving a little bit to be desired in terms of small bump sensitivity. I opened up the OTT quite a bit. My air pressure is fairly low. However, I just felt like even climbing, just hitting kind of rocks that were about this size, the front end would sort of hit, and it almost felt like there was a lot of stiction, like it would kind of pick the front end up and the back would just kind of gobble it up. And the same could be said for traverse, kind of flatter descents that weren't quite so aggressive where you're really leaning over the front end and you're hitting bigger bumps. But some of those smaller little roots and embedded rock, it just felt like the fork was kind of more in like a pedal platform position before it got into that opening up spot. Nevertheless, it's a cool and unique feeling fork, and I could find some people really enjoying it, and others may just have to spend a little bit more time tuning it in to reacclimate themselves. I would say that GasGas have done a pretty solid job at $10,999. It is, I would say, on par with some of the other brands that are offering, full axis bikes with some impressive higher level suspension, Newman wheels. So I wouldn't say that it's outlandish in its price, and I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a bargain bin kind of a price tag either, but I do think this bike rides a little better than some of those kind of cheapy bikes. The noise coming from the bike can be a little bit hit or miss depending on the type of trails. Like there were some spots where I was like, oh, I've seen other people talk about noise or rattles, and then I wouldn't have anything happen. And then I'd ride a different type of terrain where I wouldn't really expect it, and I would hear some clattering, and I just have not quite yet isolated if it's coming from the plastic shrouds vibrating, or if it's more like battery and cable rattle. My guess is that it's gonna be this brake hose kind of hitting the inside of the shroud or possibly the battery. We'll be sure to dive into that for the long-term review, but it's definitely not bad. Overall, I've been quite pleased so far, and I think we'll continue to pass this bike around to the crew for more miles. If you guys have anything that you want us to focus on for the long-term review, questions that you've got, let us know. We'll try to answer them down below and keep them in mind for that long-term review. Of course, we would love to have you guys along for more videos. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and check out all the fresh new merch we just added to the web store. Thank you guys very much. We'll see you out on the trails.